Hello, folks. I'm Bob Kitchen from Maple Hill Golf, and you're listening to our official podcast, The Hill Unscripted. Every 2 weeks, I'm going to bring you real talk from inside the golf world, insights, stories, conversations that matter to you as a golfer and as a valued member of the Maple Hill family. A new episode is going to drop every other week, so be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts. Now let's get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is fresh on my mind. It just happened, the PGA Championship. So people were asking me, what'd you think of the PGA Championship? What'd you think of PGA Championship? Well, and then another buddy said, well, what about the mud golf balls and all that? So I want to get into a few different things. First off, I was a fan of the PGA Championship. I loved it. I thought the competition was great. I love to see those big names at the top because that really pushes the needle and gets people interested and gets people talking. I do, of course, like to see new people win and kind of people make their way, and the guys that are trying to earn their right into the limelight. I love all that too. But to see Scottie up there and Bryson up there and Rahm up there was just really, really fun. And it looked like Scottie was going to kind of hand it over, and the guy's resolve, man, there's something to be said for just being calm and collected all the time. I believe he's a really good family man. I believe he's a really good human being. I think he's got the right disposition. I don't think he's exciting. Somebody called him Tim Duncan, and I absolutely loved that. I was like, he is Tim Duncan. He's boring and great. Tim Duncan never exactly lit up anybody's world, but he won, right? And he won and he won and he won. So it's hard to argue that. I think that the PGA Championship proved a couple things. I think it proved that golf is hard. You watch those guys collapsing on Saturday. Bryson's last 5 holes was incredible. They were tied, and it could have went either direction, but I don't think Bryson quite has the patience that Scottie does yet, and I think that may come with time, or maybe it never will. Bryson and Scottie certainly have different dispositions for sure. So those last 5 holes on Saturday kind of told the story, and then the back 9 on Sunday, Scottie found a way to turn the ship around and still shoot even and win by 5, and I just thought it was awesome. I really did. I was excited for him. He won by such a landslide. It looked like it was going to be interesting, and then with like 6 holes left or 5 holes left, everybody fell apart, and Scottie, the cream rose to the top, and good for him. So how many more majors is he going to win? Somebody asked me that once. I said, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 would be my guess. The guy's that good. He's fantastic. It is a great reminder of how hard golf is, because we get people in here every day that are doing fittings and customers, striving for perfection and excellence, and golf is just so hard. It takes a long time. I've told people this that are starting. I'm like, it takes a long time at golf just to suck. And then after that, you can start actually turning it away from suck to decent, and then from decent to pretty good, and then by the grace of God and a lot of practice and a lot of patience, you at some point in time might be called a good or even a great golfer. The guys that are trying to make it to the level those guys made it to is just indescribable how difficult that is. So my points about that are this, and I don't think the USGA is ever going to listen to this podcast. I hope this makes it big, and I hope you all share it and tell your friends about it. But golf is so hard. Turning a course like that course, Quail, into a par 71, just so that they don't, like, if it was a par 72 like it is, then he would have shot 15 under. But he shot 11 under because they have to change the par to make it ridiculous, which I'm not a fan of. I had a buddy of mine, Ricky Schiltzen, here the other day. We were talking. Ricky's a good / probably great player. He qualified for an event out in New Jersey. He played in Indiana and qualified, and last year he played in it and finished in the top 10 and got an exemption into it again this year. And so they went and played someplace, Plainfield, something or other in New Jersey. And he was telling me they changed the course into a par 70. And it's a par 72, but they changed it into a par 70. So people, and then it's a 2-man best ball. And the second day they shot 2 under, which would have been 4 under. They had, I think he said 5 par 4s playing up around 480. If you play golf on a regular basis, 480 yards, you got to hit it 280 off the tee, and then you're still left with 200 in, which is probably a mid to long iron, and you got to hit it dead straight. The rough's long. Just golf is so hard. I don't I don't quite understand why the PGA, USGA, whoever's making the rules for these majors and all these events, and the one Ricky played in, why they want to grow the rough super long, lower the par down, and just hammer and bludgeon the golfer to death. That I've never been a fan of that. I am a fan of the majors. The Masters greens are crazy, right? Like those greens are so crazy. I've been there twice. I got the putt on the greens over at the Bergman place before. They're insane. You can't explain it to someone until you've seen it. It's worse than putt golf. It's impossible. But those guys go out there and they tolerate it because it's Augusta National. And I've been selling clubs. If you listen to my intro 2 podcasts ago, I've been selling clubs since I was 16 years old, and I'm 46. And I'll tell you this: I've never seen anybody quit the game of golf because it's too easy. We've had a lot of people quit golf, and then COVID happened, and everybody came back, and their brother and their cousin and their grandkid and their niece and nephew. And now everybody's playing golf, which is beautiful. I love it. I'm all for it. I love the boom. Tiger's boom was huge. COVID boom was huge. And golf's such a great game of life. We've talked about that a little bit. It's just so hard. It'll never be mastered. Nobody's going to go out and eagle every hole. Hole-in-ones are difficult. There's just so much to it. Making it harder has never really made any sense to me. I think I talked to my dad about it back in the day, in the 80s and 90s. There's a course in northern Michigan called Black Forest. It was always touted as the hardest golf course in Michigan, the hardest, most difficult. And I think a lot of people, when they started playing golf, they were like, "Oh, I'm going to go out and play the hardest course. I want to play the tips. I want this. I want that." And the difficulty was the lure. And now I think that the ease is the lure. Like, you go talk to people about the golf courses up in Traverse City, and a lot of people like the Wolverine better than the Bear because Gary Player's designs are a little more friendly than Jack Nicklaus's designs are. And I just enjoyed it more. It was more fun. And that's what you're paying for, right? You're supposed to have fun, not aggravation. So making it difficult has never really made sense to me. So there was this big push to make golf hard. Now there's this big push to, like, we're the most friendly golf course you can play. Like Maple Hill, our course in particular, we don't have any sand traps. My dad filled them in back in the 70s when he bought Maple Hill. And my dad says, if golf never existed, like, I don't know, 10 years ago, pickleball never existed or whatever it was, that's a relatively new sport. If golf didn't exist, and it started this right now, would they put sand traps on golf courses? And that's a great question. That's a hell of a question. It slows up play. It is a lot of maintenance for the golf course. You have to keep putting sand in there, and the rain washes them out, and and you have to keep refilling them with sand because people blast their ball in there and blast the sand out of it. And it doesn't really penalize the really good player because they're so good out of sand. They're phenomenal. And then it really penalizes the bad player. So it makes the bad player worse. The good player it doesn't affect. So what does sand on a golf course really do? I don't know. Makes it harder. And it's already hard enough, in my opinion. That's kind of this whole rant I'm going on. So then if you watched 17 at PGA Quail, that was the par 3 over the drink. And Bryson made a 5 there on Saturday, and I think it was Matt Fitzpatrick hit it up on the right-hand side on the hill, chunked a wedge down, then bladed a wedge over. And so the next time I do that, I'm not going to be quite as upset at myself because I just watched this guy do it, and he's one of the best players in the world. So he's up on the side hill in the long grass, and it's a very difficult downhill shot. Sand on, water behind, sand left, sand right. And he had to hit this really difficult little shot, and he chunks his first one, blades the second one. I think he made a 5 there, I think. That it's just so difficult. And then Thursday there was a bunch of rain down there, and they had the golf balls landing in the fairway and getting mud on them. I'm all for the play it as it lies. I'm all for the rub of the green. I'm all for all the stuff that goes along with that, but it's never made sense to me. I don't think that part of the difficulty of golf should be playing golf with mud on your golf ball. I really don't. I think that if there's muddy conditions at all, and there's a chance of the golf ball being muddy, you can say, hey, on hole 13 and hole 15 or whatever the holes were that had that, if your ball has mud on it, lift clean and drop it from knee height. Just if it's the same for everybody, it's the same for everybody. There's no advantage if you let people do the same thing for everybody. It's kind of like the belly putter, and then the long putter, like anchoring it to your chest. If everyone can do it, how in the world is it considered an advantage? An advantage is something that one person can do that somebody else can't do. So if you got a guy that's 7'6" and a guy that's 5'4", the 7'6" guy has an advantage in basketball because he can get more rebounds. He can dunk the ball easier. There's a huge advantage. If you put them both on a golf course and say, go make a putt, and they both use a belly putter and one putter's longer than the other, who cares about that? They're anchoring it to their chest. Who cares about that? If everyone can do it, there is no advantage. So I don't know why they made that rule other than to irritate and frustrate the people that play this game. That didn't make a lot of sense to me that when they changed that rule, and they're trying to roll back the golf ball, which I don't think will ever happen. I'll get into that more in a different podcast, but golf is just so difficult. The mud balls doesn't make any sense to me. Just the USGA and the PGA being so hard-headed is irritating. And I love the sport, and they do a lot of things right, so I'm not going to sit here and go on and on about what they do right. But it's just so difficult, and I just don't like to hear those guys complain about, well, they caught, the ball flew weird in the air because I had a big glob of mud on the side of it. Okay, then if that's even a possibility, clean it off, drop it from knee height, and let's keep playing. Same rules for everybody. Go ahead. And so then somebody brought up, well, what about a divot? Divots, folks, the ball will always have to be played out of divots because the divot from yesterday and the divot from 2 or 3 weeks ago are different depths. So then what defines a divot, right? So that's the problem. So people, well, I don't think you should have to play out of divots. Okay, so define a divot. And therein lies the problem. You'll never be able to define a divot because, well, this looks like it was a divot, but it's like 2 weeks old and it's kind of grown in, but my ball's sitting down. Can we get the marshal over here to look at this? And it's supposed to be a gentleman's sport. It's supposed to be played by honesty and integrity. It's very, very difficult to do that because what defines a divot? And I don't know, two people could look at the same thing and define it differently. So I don't think they'll ever change the rule on divots. But mud golf balls is a different animal. I think it's a pretty easy one to fix. So for the love of God, just let the guys clean the golf ball and drop it back onto the ground. And leave the pars at 72. I think people like to see birdies. I think people like to see eagles. If anybody out there watch the PGA, I think it was number 14 was that drivable par 4. It was like 300 to 330, whatever it was. And these guys, some people were laying back because they didn't have that shot, that rope around the trees and the water, sand. There was a lot of penalties up near the green, and it was a real risk-reward hole. And that just proves that a 300-yard, 330-yard par 4 can still be really, really fun. And I hope the PGA learned something from that because I think people loved watching that hole. I can tell you when I was sitting at home watching golf on Saturday and Sunday, it was my favorite hole to watch. Absolutely favorite hole to watch because you never knew what they were going to do. And they had a really good chance at maybe making an eagle. A couple of guys hit it to a foot, right? I don't think anybody got an ace there, but I think people were hitting it really, really tight and, making 7-footers and 2-footers and 30-footers for eagle. I think that's fun. My own personal opinion, I think it's fun to see people do good, especially these guys that have earned it and worked so hard to get where they are. And a 480-yard par 4 where you're just hoping to God they make a par. And my buddy Ricky was playing in that event, and it's just so, so difficult. So that's my take on the PGA and how hard golf is, and making it harder doesn't make any sense to me. And what my dad said years ago about how they were trying to make courses hard, and then they were like, oh, no, we got to go the other way. We got to make courses easy. My dad was spot on about that. Kind of the accordion effect, right? When golf starts and the Jack Nicklaus boom happened, right? I wasn't really around for that, or I wasn't playing golf at that time, but Arnold Palmer got the ball rolling. Jack Nicklaus kicked it down the hill. Tiger Woods took it and ran with it, and then we had every race, ethnicity, age group. Everybody was playing golf. It was beautiful. Golf turned into what it always should have been, and that's a game for everyone, and that was so nice. And then it started tapering back down, like I said, accordion effect, and then here comes COVID, and boom. So we had this big accordion effect in COVID, and we're maybe contracting a little, but I think if you talk to Callaway, Titleist, TaylorMade, Ping, Cobra, these major manufacturers, the numbers they're doing today, even if they're down from the last 2 years, they would have killed for them 6 years ago before COVID, because it's still that much better than what it once was. So I can tell you Maple Hill's business didn't quite double in 1 year, but it just about doubled in 1 year when COVID happened. And I always told my family, is it better to earn it or have it handed to you? I always wanted to earn it. In this particular case, we had it handed to us as far as the increase in business. So I've always been working hard to try to grow the business, and then here comes COVID, and we didn't really have to work too hard. We were set up for success, thank God, and we had a lot of hardworking employees that really helped us get there. But it was a blessing as far as the golf industry goes. It was a curse as far as a lot of other things go. So very fortunate to be in the golf business during that whole thing. So enough about all that. I'm going to move on to the next topic I want to talk about. I want to talk about this. This is amazing. I'll put this on so you folks can see it. This driver here that I'm holding in my hands, this is a Wilson Dynapower carbon driver head, and it looks completely normal. It's missing a little black piece where they put the camera inside the club head and look inside of it. So we called Wilson and sent him a picture of it, and they said it's a counterfeit. And we're like, wow, okay. They're like, destroy it and throw it away. So after this, I'm going to destroy it and throw it away. But I wanted to tell folks how counterfeit golf clubs work. They estimate that there's hundreds of millions of dollars of counterfeit clubs making in the U.S. every year. So the cost of manufacturing a golf club, folks, if you just make it out of garbage material, if you just make it out of a steel head instead of titanium or super low grade or really low quality carbon, you can make a club head really inexpensive. Shafts don't cost anything to make. Grips don't cost anything to make. I don't care what it is. And now you got the counterfeiters aren't worried about performance at all. They're just trying to sell clubs. So what happens is this. They take these golf clubs like a Titleist driver. I'll pick on them for a minute because Titleist is such a premium brand. That driver's $649. Well, if you make a fake one, you can sell it for $300 and still make a lot of money. Titleist has a lot of expenses involved. Their product's very premium. It sells for a very high price on the used market as well. So what happens with these counterfeit golf clubs is somebody makes one that looks like a Titleist. It says Titleist. It says GT2 on it. It looks just like it. It's not made by Titleist. It's fake. It doesn't perform. It's actually dangerous. We had a whole box in the back room. That box is no longer there. I'll also be showing you some of that stuff. But the shafts are so low quality they break. And I can tell you there's nothing more dangerous on a golf course than a broken golf club. The head goes flying. The shaft itself might splinter. And if it flies to the air, if it goes backwards and hits one of your playing opponents, you do not want graphite splinters. We've had employees get graphite in their hands and had to have surgery on it. Golf clubs are dangerous. A fake purse, like a fake Louis Vuitton purse, I know there's a million of those too. It still holds your money. It doesn't affect how the purse performs. Fake Rolex watches still tell time. They're not worth as much as the Rolex. They degrade and devalue the brand Rolex, which is probably Rolex's biggest complaint. They're not making any money off of it, which I'm sure is their other complaint. But fake golf clubs are really, really dangerous, folks. They're dangerous as far as performance. They're dangerous as far as degrading the value of the real branded golf clubs. And there's a lot of them out there. And if it looks too good and it sounds too good, it probably is. If the website looks real Asian, almost basically every fake golf club comes from Asia. Every golf club comes from Asia, period. The real ones do too. So what they do is they sneak ahead. Somebody that works for some factory making the club heads, they sneak ahead out of there early in production. They sell the golf club for $100, $1,000, $10,000. I don't know. They sell it to some other factory that has the capability of making a golf club look like this, and then they start production, and they start production of a lot of them, and they get the cheapest shaft they can get. They get a 75-cent grip. They make it look like it's a real Titleist, a real Scottie Cameron or Callaway. And if this is a fake Wilson, they're even copying Wilson, folks. So if they're copying Wilson, they're going to copy everything. And then what they do is they sell it on websites for a significantly discounted price. And that is the problem. So people are going, well, your Titleist driver is $649 and theirs is $299. Well, I can promise you the market on golf clubs isn't that great. The market on golf clubs is way less than what anybody would think it is. It's just not that high. We're not doubling our money. This isn't furniture or diamonds. This is just golf clubs at retail with a lot of competition. And they also sell a lot of them on eBay. And sometimes it ships from California. Sometimes it ships from straight from somewhere in East Asia. What they started doing then is they started getting really smart and selling them as used, because used nobody really looks at as far as the pricing. So if you've got a driver that's $650, it'll sell used for $300. So why sell it new for $300 and get all the spotlight on you and get the police on you and Titleist lawyers on you and deal with all that headache. So then they just started selling them as used. Well, now we got used ones for $299, you know, and again, folks, if it sounds too good to be true, it just simply is. You really got to watch what you're doing. You got to watch where you're buying from. You got to buy from reputable places. And then the last but not least, certainly not least, one thing that drives me crazy is they go, well, there's a serial number on it, so it's got to be real. Well, serial numbers mean absolutely nothing. So people are like, well, I called Titleist and they said the serial number is real. Folks, the counterfeiters that make fake golf clubs use real serial numbers. They're not that stupid. So what they do is when they make these club heads and they have to etch a serial number into the golf club, they go look at a store, somebody takes a picture of it, takes that serial number, sends it to whoever's making the golf clubs, and they just start printing thousands and thousands with that serial number on it, or maybe a few different serial numbers, 10 or 15 different serial numbers. You can go into Dick's Sporting Goods right now, go take pictures of 20 different serial numbers off 20 different golf clubs and have them just start printing them on fake heads, and now you have serial numbers that are real, but the golf club's not. So the problem lies that people go, well, the serial number, I called and checked on it, and they said it's a real serial number. Yeah, it is a real serial number, but there's no way to prove the golf club's 100% authentic unless you bought it from somebody that's reputable and knows what they're doing. So the used market's tough. I'm not trying to put fear or doubt in people's minds, but I just want to inform people of what's actually happening out there. So then the question would be, well, why are golf clubs serial numbered? Here's why golf clubs are serial numbered. So that if I call into Wilson and say, hey, XC090P1, the number off this golf club, tell me its history. They can go, okay, that was sold to Maple Hill Golf Course on XYZ date. So they can trace where the golf club has been. So if golf clubs happen to show up in a strange spot like Costco or Sam's Club, which has happened before in the past, they can buy a golf club, the manufacturer like TaylorMade can buy a golf club from Costco, check that serial number and see who sold that golf club to Costco. If it wasn't them, they want to be able to have a trail as to where that golf club was sold and figure out how in the world it got into Costco for some sort of discounted price, which may or may not ruin the market. So Costco used to do that quite a bit. They used to try to source golf clubs and buy golf clubs. And if the new Callaway Great Big Bertha driver was $399, they'd try to sell for $329, and like cost was $300. They always have about a 10% markup at Costco. So they would source product, then they'd destroy that whole market. They'd bring the price from $399 to $329. Nobody's making money anymore. Nobody wants to sell Callaway clubs anymore because there's no profitability in it. So that's what used to happen. Then Callaway, TaylorMade, Cobra, they started getting smart and saying, okay, we don't want them sourcing our product anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually make them product that's only for Costco. So if you go into Costco and you see this Edge set that they sell, you can't buy it any place in the United States of America other than Costco. Callaway says if you buy this set, we'll give you a pretty good profit margin on it. You can control the profit margin on it. You can buy as many or as few as you want. Just don't source our product from anybody but us direct. And then Costco turned the faucet off on sourcing product, turned the faucet on from buying direct. They got a product that they have exclusive rights on, and that's how that game is played, folks, if you don't understand that. And then Costco was like, wow, we've actually got quite a bit of a golf following now, so let's make our own Kirkland brand stuff. So the Kirkland glove is nice. The first golf ball they made was fantastic, and then since then their golf balls have been very low quality, but nobody cares because that first one was really good, and everybody still thinks they're selling that one. They're not. So Kirkland doesn't have any R&D. They just have a good brand that says Kirkland. Their putter, their wedges, their driver, it's all basically box set type of stuff. It's maybe a little bit better than a box set, whatever. And if you think that driver's a really good deal or that putter's a really good deal, come on and see us. We've got a better brand for a lower price 99.9% of the time. So that's the way fake golf clubs work. That's the way the big box works. So I wanted to touch on all that stuff. And you got any questions about counterfeit golf clubs, or if you ever don't know what in the world you're talking about or looking at, you can always just bring it into us or call us, send us pictures. Sometimes it's hard to tell with pictures. You really got to see it in person. Some of our staff was even fooled years ago. Ed Tonak, I got to tell a quick story. Actually, I got two quick stories. This Ed Tonak retired from Maple Hill. He was in the business longer than I was. Ed was a genius. Worked at Scott's Golf and then Second Swing, and then we hired him. And he's got this guy with a TaylorMade R7 driver, and he's like, man, I'm hitting this thing way too high. And Ed's like, all right, I got the solution. We'll put a Pro Launch Red shaft in there. Pro Launch Red was low. Pro Launch Blue was high. He's like, we'll put a Pro Launch Red in there. We'll knock it down. It said 9 degrees on it, and the guy goes out, and he's like, still ballooning it, dude, hitting it to the moon. So Ed's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. Let's get you something else then. So the guy trades it in, and he decides to get whatever else he bought. I can't remember. Some other 9 degree. Yep, I'm hitting it way lower now, way better. Okay. Ed gives him $100 for his trade-in. This is years ago. This is like in 2010 or 12 or somewhere back in then. So the TaylorMade rep comes in. We're like, hey, look at this driver. He's like, yeah, R7 draw, 9 degree, Pro Launch Red. We're like, yeah, what do you think about it? He's like, yeah, it looks pretty good. We're like, yeah, it's fake. He's like, what? Well, we ended up measuring it. The loft was 15 degrees. It said 9 on it. So the guy was hitting it to the moon. Of course he was hitting it to the moon. It was 6 degrees off. But now, again, the counterfeiters aren't worried about performance. They just want it to look like that, get your money, screw you over, and move on. That's all that they do. So that was one. The other one this one sticks out in my mind. This one was so funny. This guy was a pilot. I think he was from Delta, maybe. Who cares? He was a pilot, and he frequented, I think it was Shanghai. And he flew, made a lot of trips over the ocean. And he comes in here one day, and he's like, yeah, I want to trade in these hybrids. And I'm like, all right. He's like, yeah, I got a 3, 4, and a 5. We're like, all right, fine. And they were Callaway Diablos, if you remember that club. So this is, again, 12, 13 years ago, something like that. We'll take him in on trade, sir. So he's like, yeah, I hit them all about the same, and I just want to hit something that goes a little bit further. Maybe I need a 7-wood or 5-wood or something. All right, fine. So we have him hit a few, and we get them all set up, and we're going to go look at his trade-ins and lay them on the counter. And they're all 3, 4, and 5 length. And then we start looking at the golf clubs. I'm like, oh, these are fake, sir. The shaft was wrong. The grip smelled like charcoal or gas. Oftentimes fake grips smell bad. They don't smell like rubber. They smell like charcoal or gasoline. So we started looking at the golf clubs really closely. And it was etched into the head. It had a big 3 stamped in it, 4 stamped in it, and 5 stamped in it. But it was the exact same head. All 3 heads were the same loft. They weren't an actual 3, 4, and 5. They had the number 3, 4, and 5, but they were all the same loft as the 5. They were all like 24 degrees, I think it was. So we're like, well, no wonder, sir. You have the same golf club 3 times over. And he's like, oh, my God. He goes, you know what? I thought it might be fake. I bought it at this market in Shanghai, and it was super cheap. I was like, how cheap? He's like all 3 of them for $100. And at the time, they sold for like $150 or $160 each. And I'm like, yeah, you probably had a pretty good idea that they were fake at that. He's like, yeah, but I figured for that price, who cares? So I don't blame the guy. I'm not saying the guy's a bad guy. He didn't take golf that serious, so he just thinks he's doing something like big deal. Who cares? And then next thing you know, he's bringing counterfeit golf clubs in the U.S. And we ended up I said, dude, can I just have these so I can tell this story to other people and make sure they don't get ripped off? And he said, yeah. So he donated them to us, and I've showed those clubs to numerous people. Once is 3, once is 4, and they're the exact same head. He ended up keeping the 5 anyhow. He's going to keep playing with it. So fake golf clubs, man. Scotty Cameron's especially. There's a billion of them. You got to be really careful. The serial number doesn't mean much. It's etched into the shaft. Sometimes they use a different font. The grips are weird. The head shape, sometimes it's a Newport head and it's got a Laguna shape. My buddy Nate's got one of those. It looks like one model and it has the other model stamped onto it because they don't know what they're doing. They oftentimes get things confused. The weights fall out of the head. The paint job's terrible. All that kind of thing. That all exists. So counterfeit golf clubs, beware. And all these companies have formed a team to fight counterfeit golf clubs because it's such an issue in the United States. And like Callaway, TaylorMade, Payne Cobra, the big companies, they've all teamed up and they're hiring the police. I heard this story from one of the companies direct. They're hiring the police from this town to go raid that town because the police in that town are getting paid off by the counterfeiters to turn a blind eye. So they have to hire police from a different town to go raid a different town. And then the police in that town are getting mad because they're no longer getting paid. So I think part of the issue is that everybody from the United States thinks that how everything is in the United States is how everything is everywhere, and that is not true. The way things are in the U.S., we've got issues, no question. We've got lawlessness in certain locations and areas, but we We don't have that, I don't think. I'm sure we do in like the drug world or something, but we don't have people making fake golf clubs and getting paid off, the cops getting paid off, so that we have to have another town raid a different town so that they can actually seize the counterfeit golf clubs and destroy them and make it no longer part of the issue. So moving on from that topic, I want to move into another topic. We got one. We got a good question from a consumer already, which I love it. It says, my Titleist TSR2 9-degree driver seems to sit quite a bit of a shaft lean. I have it set to standard or 0.75 degrees upright. Is this shaft lean set up normal, or for a driver should it be more neutral? So shaft lean, I don't know if he's talking about upright or he's talking about forward and back, but the way the drivers are made, basically you should have your ball position be consistent no matter what hosel setting you have a driver set at. So if it appears that the face has got a ton of loft to it, you can always knock that down. But if the ball's performing well, who cares? If the ball's performing well, it doesn't really matter. And then the people that are watching this and not just listening to it, if you can see my hand, like if the toe of the golf club is way up in the air and this is the shaft of the golf club coming out of it, at impact, that golf club is considerably more upright at impact than what it is at setup. At setup, the golf club looks like this. At impact, the shaft's bowing down, the golf club's turning. There's a toe down effect. The golf club's much more square. So there's a lot of people that come in here, especially shorter guys that come in here and they go, look at how my driver's sitting. It's sitting way in the toe in the air. Like, yep, they oftentimes do that because when you swing it, you're more upright. The golf club's bowing down. There's a lot of different changes from setup to impact, and too many people look at setup like it is impact, and it's not. So shaft lean, I can't really exactly explain what your answer is because I'm not exactly 100% sure what your question is. But if the golf club's performing well, don't change anything. If the golf club's not performing right, yeah, it might be something you want us to look at if you're local, or bring it to somebody that's local that knows what they're talking about or whatever. But no matter how you adjust a driver, it shouldn't really change the quote-unquote shaft lean. If you make it more draw bias, you're actually making it more upright, which kicks the toe in the air a little bit more and makes the face shut a little bit easier. They call it draw bias. It really, truly is upright, but they didn't think the average consumer can understand that, so they call it draw bias. So I'm not exactly sure how to answer your question, but if it's working, don't change anything. If it isn't working, keep adjusting until you figure it out or get a different shaft in there. If you really just don't like the look of the golf club, get something else. Trade it in and get something else. But TSR2 is a great driver, so there shouldn't be any issues with it. So I hope it's working for you. And the other thing is you have to get the shaft length right. You know, that might have a little bit of an issue to do if you're talking about lie angle instead of shaft angle, like forwards or back. Like if you feel like you have to forward press it in order to get it straight, you don't have to forward press it in order to get it straight. Just swing it how it is. It's fine. At impact, your shaft should have a slight lean from the head back to your hands. I want to introduce you to somebody that I'll have on the show more than just today, but there's something really cool. This is not only our general manager here at Maple Hill Golf, he's also my cousin. This is Stevie, my younger cousin, I should say, so everybody's well aware. Our families have been very, very close since the day we were born, and Steve played college golf, really, really good player, and he's got a really, really cool thing that they started last year. Yeah. And they're going to continue it on this year. So I want to introduce Steve, and he can tell you about the cool thing he's doing for the summer.
Yeah, so the one ball challenge, we started it last year. Basically took one ball, went out on our second hole here at Maple Hill, and just played a hole with a bunch of different models of balls to kind of give feedback on what I thought of them. And just see how the different models perform compared to each other, gave ratings, and now we're going to start that up again here soon for the 2025 season, and it's been really fun.
Yeah, people loved it.
Yeah, we got some good feedback from people of what kind of ball they wanted me to try and what they were interested in and what kind of, details they wanted on the different golf balls that I was trying.
Yeah, they always, what's your feedback on it? What's your take on it? I get asked that all the time, and I'm like, I don't really know. But Steve's not only a really good golfer, but he also knows the difference and stuff. He's part of our product mix. He handles a lot of our ordering and all that stuff. So, and his swing's consistent enough where he can actually tell the difference of these things. And number 2 is one of our par 5s here at Maple Hill, and it's one of the longer holes, so that's a good hole to test it on, so we can actually rip the driver off the tee. And compare the Wilson staff to the Srixon, to the Callaway, and all the different models and brands and all that stuff. And we're excited to have him do that again for the summer, and watch for those videos coming soon, I suppose.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's the end of the subjects and topics I want to talk about today. I've got a lot more really cool stuff coming at you in 2 weeks from today when we shoot the next podcast. I'm already very excited about that. I do want to get into the maple spill here for just a quick moment. I got a couple really cool updates for you. If you saw the Mother's Day special that we put out there, it's on YouTube and Instagram. And if you follow us on YouTube or Instagram, you might have seen it. There's some clips, short versions of it. And then there's a longer version of it, like the 15-minute interview I had with my mother, Nancy Kitchens. So in that interview, I talked about Nance and how she switched over to Callaway golf clubs. And she's got 5 hole-in-ones all in California and all that fun stuff. Well, that is no longer true, folks. My mom's birthday was a few days before Mother's Day, and then hers is on the 9th, and then 2 or 3 days after Mother's Day on Tuesday, my mother, Nancy Kitchen, she just had turned, she was born in 51, so she just turned 74. She recorded her 6th hole-in-one, folks. So I said it in that video, if you saw it, and a lot of people got a chuckle out of it. I said, if you're feeling bad for Nancy Kitchen about anything, don't make it hole-in-ones. And then she went and got one more on us. So congratulations to my mother for her 6th hole-in-one, her only one in the state of Michigan, with her new Callaway club. She was 125 yards out, number 8 at railside, and she hit a 5 hybrid. It rolled right across the green and went in. Her playing mates, it was during league, which was really cool. She got to actually experience sharing a hole-in-one with a whole bunch of her friends for the first time, because all the other ones were in California, just playing with my dad and a couple of their friends out there. So when you're with a group of people, it's a different animal. So and she didn't believe it, but it was in. So congratulations to my mother. And then one other one I cannot miss and skim over is our own shipping manager, Mr. Matt Muzinski, who's one of the most humble guys in the world. He doesn't really like any accolades, doesn't like anybody talking about him, and that's exactly why I'm talking about him, to make sure that you understand that Matt Muzinski, who doesn't play golf very often and is not in the top 5 or 10 players we have here, he was on a golf trip up north with a group of his buddies. I think there was 20 of them, 24 of them, something like that. They were playing up in Boyne, and from 158 yards out, he hit a 6 hybrid over a swamp on the green, rolled across the green, and as the ball was going in the hole, he bent over to pick up his tee and didn't see it go in. But his playing partners went absolutely crazy. I had to have been on Saturday because he sent me a video on Saturday night, and I fell asleep on my couch. It was late. And then Sunday morning, I woke up, watched the video, and I texted him. I said, did you really get a hole-in-one? He's like, yeah, I did, man. It was the best thing ever. It's still a little hazy, a little foggy. I might have had a couple drinks after that. So the maple spill that I've got for right this exact moment is the update on my mother, and congratulations to Matt Muzinski. And until next time, that's what we've got for you. Bob Kitchens signing off. Have a great week.